Are there any drummers in the house?
I play percussion. That's because you couldn't play anything else.
Shut up. Come here, dude.
Hey, man. Do you touch my drum set?
Nope.
It's just weird, because seems like someone definitely touched my drum set.
Yeah, that is weird. 'Cause I didn't touch them.
I am warning you right now, if you touch my drums, I will stab you in the neck with a knife.
Not quite my tempo. It's all good. No worries. Here we go.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Drumheads podcast. My name is Daniel. How are you? How you guys doing? And this is episode 62 with Dave Collingwood. Part deux, whatever you want to say. Yes, this is the second appearance of Dave Collingwood. If you're not familiar with Dave Collingwood, he is a cymbalsmith out of Bristol, England. And I had him back on. It was almost exactly a year this time last year, so it was great to catch up with Dave. We talked about, just the continuing of his education when it comes to learning about how to make cymbals and, the neat techniques he's learned and all that kind of stuff. We kind of dabbled in a little bit of Brexit, just a little bit, and then, just catching up. It's always nice to just talk to these people once again and just kind of refamiliarize ourselves with each other and just talk. That's what this podcast is about. It's just conversation. And, it's always great to have someone that's international from a different country on to, just share their thoughts about drums. So it was great to have Dave on. Go check him out. Go follow him on Instagram, Facebook, all that. He makes some, very lovely cymbals. And they're very classy. They're very, they've got like a sophistication about them. That's, I guess it's, he gets the blanks from Turkey, so it has the, the Turkish elements to it, but then he adds his own English sensibilities to it, which I think is, very interesting. And he makes the cymbals based on the tone he's wanting. So if he's wanting this certain tone, he just makes the cymbal that way. Instead of like trying to just like make random cymbals, that appease, just a general person, or a general kind of style of music. He just makes cymbals based on the sound, which is so cool. So I'm going to, tax return time maybe of next year. You Americans know what that is. If you don't, in the U.S. we do our tax returns and we get some money back. You have kids, you have blah, 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 you get some money back. So I'm going to put some aside so I can get Dave. I'm going to commission Dave to make me a cymbal. So I think it's going to be really cool. Add that to the podcast and, just the overall thing. I think it would, and it'd be great to support him, get him to make me a new ride. I want a ride cymbal that's going to be, it's going to have several different characteristics, and I think Dave can do it, and just I think it'd be a great addition to the podcast. So here it is, episode 62 with Dave Collingwood, part 2, like The Godfather. See you guys. All right, hey guys, welcome back to the Drumheads podcast, and I am joined once again by Dave Collingwood. How are you, Dave?
I'm good, thank you. I'm busy. But good. Happy and busy.
Yeah, it has been, I was trying to look, we talked a year ago, this time last year, I think.
Yeah, well, I just saw actually on Skype, I didn't think, but it gives you the date, and it was the 17th of September last year. So what's that,
okay.
A year and 6 days? Yeah,
yeah,
a year and 6 days.
Which is, it's incredible that, the progression of, you and, then, the podcast, it's amazing. And I've always wanted to, I think you're the first person I've actually caught up with after doing a podcast with them. So it's very nice to catch up and see how things are going on your end and seeing how the progression is going.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me back. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. So let's just start off with how's your cymbal, manufacturing, I guess you could say, going, you picking up any more clients or just more people?
Yeah. I'm trying to think really how it was a year ago, but I'd say I've got a more steady stream of people that keep an eye on what I'm doing. I guess word is spreading, which is cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's like a little clutch of people who are just in touch all the time and saying, what are you working on? What have you got coming up? I could do something like this. And there's a guy today, actually, I posted a picture of one a 20-inch crash ride that I finished today, and this guy just jumped on it and said, just send me the video before you do anything else. And
nice.
I've got a few people like that, which is, it's a real boost to the confidence and the bank balance. It's really nice.
For sure. Well, that's cool. I was, because, I follow you on Instagram and seeing your progression, you're doing, it seems like a lot more symbols these days, which is always good to see that people are, they're getting further ahead, from a year ago, which is it's always cool to see that with people. I'm like almost like it's such a mind, like bending thing that both of us have had such success, I guess you could say, and I think the internet is just one of the key components to it is
totally.
It's just having that connection. So
yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to ask this question. I was curious: is with the blanks coming out of Turkey, has there been any problems getting blanks lately, or is that?
Do you mean because of the situation over there?
Yeah, because of Erdogan and all that. I was curious.
Sorry, go on.
I was just kind of curious.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's. I went through a little phase where I didn't order a great deal. I did a big order quite a long time ago, and that kept me going. Also, I managed to get hold of a few different blanks from Germany through Matt Nolan, another independent symbolsmith here in the UK. He kind of passed a few my way. So I was working with some different B20 as well, which was quite interesting. But yeah, when I went back to make an order from my Turkish supplier, I did ask, how. My first thing was, how are you personally and your family, and
yes.
The area, and just what the hell's going on? And it was business as usual as far as they were concerned from a symbol perspective. I'm sure living there is pretty difficult in certain ways. But yeah, I didn't have any problem. I've placed a couple of orders recently, and I've had some really nice B20 blanks coming through. So
very nice.
It seems to be still sort of open. I mean, we got the whole Brexit thing hanging in the balance, which God knows how that's going to affect what I do. I'm just a small businessman in a big country, but lots of people are going to feel the pinch of that, I think.
Oh yeah, and watching that on TV and keeping up with Brexit, it's it's almost like here in America, because I'm like scared to death that Trump's going to be my president. And
man, don't do it.
Don't do it, guys. And I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, we've got to find an exit plan if this does happen. We may have to go to England,
I remember we talked about this last time. This is how long all this stuff has been hanging in the air.
I know, and that's incredible that everyone was like, oh, Trump won't make it. I'm like thinking, yeah, he might. It's that same attitude I think that's going on in England is going on here. Of it's the immigrants problem. It's the we need to have more of a nationalist look instead of an international look, and it's a very scary time, I think, if you're a normal.
I don't know if it's sorry, go on. You're sort of cutting out, but yeah.
I was like, it's just, I don't know. It's a very scary time to think that we're dividing ourselves in these groups and distancing ourselves.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. It's like it's happening really on the surface now. I guess there's always been divisions, and people have maybe done it in private. So I don't know. It's just so out in the open now. Is it just bringing something to the surface that was already there? And there's obviously an element of that, but how much of it is just whipping up a kind of frenzy and creating intolerance and absolute nightmare nonsense, basically? I don't know. But yeah, it's crazy times. It really is.
It is. I try to be optimistic and think things will shake out in the right way, but you still have to have a plan B. So my wife's like, yeah, we could move to England because they speak English, and that's always good. Well, that's good. Yeah. So back to not geopolitics, I guess you could say.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're done with that.
We're done with that. I was curious to see, what I followed you, what your input was on Brexit, on Facebook and all that, and I got a good grasp. Like, yeah, he's one of those that wasn't for it. So,
I won't keep this going too long. But on the morning when we had the results, I do the school run with my kids, and I got into the preschool with my youngest son, and you could just see on the parents' faces, just everyone looking at each other, just going, what what is going on? This is just mayhem. And there was just something in the air, such a weird feeling, just a big mistake, I think. But
yeah,
we'll see what happens. Nothing's really clear at the moment. That we could take some positives from it. Who knows? We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that's that. Let's talk about bronze. Come on.
Oh yeah,
circles.
The circles that you hit with sticks. Yes.
Yeah.
So when you're making a symbol for, when someone calls and says they want a symbol, do they kind of give you the specs of what they want, or the sound? Like they're saying, I want something really dry. How do you go about that process?
To be honest, I'm still not thoroughly in the market of taking custom orders. I am to a degree, but my thing, partly because of the learning process. I mean, it's been about 2.5 years, I guess, I've been learning, maybe a bit longer, but because of that, I still haven't felt 100% confident. And I always want to be honest with people, if they say, because you do get some very particular people, which is great, they come and say, I want something that's roughly 2,513 grams with whatever frequency of wobble on the edge and all this stuff. And some of the other guys can do that, no problem. And I'm pretty close. I can do most of it. But what I tend to do is just get some blanks and I make some symbols, and people tend to go, hey, I quite like that one. I never heard one quite like that, or that reminds me of this other one I like. So, and then they snap them up that way. I'm doing a lot of mods now as well. I'm taking on some mod work.
Yeah, I've seen some of the pictures you've posted of you made stars and stuff like that. Is that just from where you've had like leftover like excess symbol material, and you kind of just make something artistic, I guess you could say, with it, which is pretty cool?
Yeah, bits of that excess, in the sense that I've managed to ruin some, perhaps, in the process, to be completely honest, but and made the best of it. But I mean, yeah, I've done stuff like that, and I'm starting to make little copper bits and pieces, just trinkets and stuff for Christmas and gifts. But I mean mods in the sense that, for example, someone sent me an old Zildjian K and just wanted it lathed down, and so I did that and opened up some kind of wash in the sound, and I'm working on an old A for someone. I've rehammered that, so I'm starting to. I understand how to take a symbol kind of roughly where someone wants it now. So I'm doing more of that to existing.
Oh, very nice
symbols.
That's a very interesting thing to do. To take a symbol you already have and start to change it a bit.
Yeah.
And do you do like any repairs? Like when someone cracks a symbol, do they come and say, "Can you try to fix this?" Or
yeah, sure. There's a shop locally that they've got my details. I've been shopping there for years and years, and I assume most times they get a damaged symbol in. If it's worth repairing and worth the time, they'll bring it to me, and I'll cut the cracks out or take the edge down and whatever it is at the time.
Yeah, because I just recently cracked my China symbol, and I'm like, now it's got this cool sizzle sound to it. So I'm kind of digging it. But
yeah, right.
What's the, like, when someone cracks a symbol, what's like the point of no return, where it's kind of like it's trash, you gotta just walk away from it? I
don't know, I think that's different for different people, really. Like you said, you cracked it and now it's got some nice sizzle element to it, why not?
Yeah.
I don't know, I think you've just sort of reminded me, a bit of a tangent here, but something I've whinged about online a bit in the forums is, you said trash, and that's, I know you said it in a different context, but there seems to be an awful lot of people going for the kind of keywords of symbols at the moment. So
okay, yeah,
I don't know quite what I'm getting at, I suppose, but like trashy and dry and stacks and cut holes in it and all this kind of stuff. So the idea of a cracked symbol or a broken symbol, I suppose it's a good thing. People are getting the idea now that they can be something else. They can be refurbished, And as for where you draw the line and where it's trash, well, there's at the very, if it's just absolutely shot to hell around the rim or whatever, you can just cut the bell out and have a little chime if you want, rehammer it, lathe it. If it makes a noise, it's an instrument, essentially, I think.
Exactly. Well, and you hit a good point about, there's so many symbols out there right now who they've, they're making some more of them square, they're not round. They've got straight angles and holes and stuff like that. And, you know, and like I said, the stacks are huge, especially here in America. It seems like you're not a big cool drummer if you don't have a stack. It's not my thing, but you know, God bless whoever does like it. But
yeah, sure.
It's definitely an interesting time where with cymbals and how people look at cymbals these days. Because when I was growing up, because I think
completely agree.
I think, you know, because we're the same age roughly. I think we were both, you know, we grew up in the '90s. So back then, when you had when you had your drum set, you were always like stressing about making sure the cymbals matched, you know, that they were like in pristine shape. And now it's kind of like the exact opposite. You know, the more imperfections, the better.
Yeah, but it's weird. It's like that's true, but I think the way people talk about it has kind of gone the opposite way. So I think there's this kind of divide between the way it's marketed, I suppose, and consumed with the way it appears in the final product. And I think I think you're right. And this is another thing I've said a little bit on the forums. Whether people agree with me or not, I don't know, but this is my opinion. But it's like, what am I trying to say? Like with some of the cymbal companies, some new ones are cropping up and they're marketing themselves in a certain way. And I sort of look at them and notice you haven't got a thing about how they're made. And that's because I think a lot of them are just coming from one place. And this one place offers OEM lines, you know, they just make sort of standard stuff, which I'm sure are very nice. But then someone can set up a business, stamp them with their own ink and market them as their symbol. And I think that's led to a sort of a desire for people. People have always wanted to be successful and be part of the family, you know, and I'm endorsed and whatever. And people get the language a bit muddled up. And that's become, there's a lot of deals around where you can become part of this symbol family and you pay a little bit of money to get an Instagram post and stuff. And that's cool. I can see the appeal for young up and coming drummers. But to be honest, I think it's a little hollow. I don't think it's leading to anything, and it's become a real marketing strategy, which is, you know, it's business. That's the way it is. But it's also my business. So
yeah.
So this is why I have an opinion on it, I suppose. I think we're in a bit of a changeover. I think this whole thing of stacks, and I get so many emails saying, can you make a trashy stack? It's like, just go and get some bits of metal and chuck them together and see what noise it makes, you know? Bill Bruford was smacking pieces of metal in the 70s and making them sound awesome.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And, you know, you don't necessarily need something that's pristinely cut and this precise size with little bells and whistles on it to make you have a decent instrument, I think.
For sure.
You know, sorry, a bit of a rant there, but this is big on my mind.
Well, no, and you know, I was, you know, there's a drummer, I'm not going to name names, but who was with a smaller, you know, independent cymbal company who, you know, for years had used that, you know, particular brand. Then all of a sudden he got an offer from one of the big ones, and you know, it's just like a, you know, switch real quick, and you know, talks about how much, oh, I love this brand, blah blah blah. And I'm like, but before you always talked about the other brand, so. Is it just a purely making money, you know, monetizing your brand as a drummer, or you know, I'm a very loyal person when it comes to my stuff. Like I feel guilty that I have like a Zildjian and a Meinl cymbal, or I have an Evans head and a Remo head on my drums. Like I feel so conflicted, and I don't think I could do that as a drummer. You know, like just because the other company offered me more money because I'm more of a high profile drummer. To start using them, it's I don't know. But I guess if it
depends in what way you're high profile. I think you know there's a game to play. There is a business, and it's fine. It is business. It's the same with anything. And you know, at the end of the day, it's not a bad position to be in if that's kind of all we've got to complain about as musicians. Although it's not all we've got to complain about. But it's, you know. It's not the worst thing in the world, and there is a game to play. It's an industry, and you know, a Sabian cymbal will sound nice, and a Zildjian cymbal will sound nice. They'll both be lovely to play. So you know, as a professional drummer with a high profile, you play the professional game, and that's fine. That's okay, I think. But you know, some people are turned off by that, and some people don't care, and whatever. It's all good.
Well, it's funny how there's so many drummers out there who are not gear oriented drummers. I just had on the drummer from Taking Back Sunday, and I was really looking forward into getting like the gear talk, you know, because he's a pretty big high profile drummer, and he invited to talk about gear with him. And I brought the topic up, and he was kind of like, yeah, to be honest, I'm not really into my gear. I find something and I like it, and that's what I use. And I found that very interesting because me personally, I kind of obsessed with gear. Like I always love finding those little small things you can add to your kit and different sounds. And I've noticed that is not a problem, but it's just the two different dynamics of drummers these days.
Yeah, I think either way is can be a slippery slope, and you can go too far. I think it's okay to follow a brand and see what they're up to and try new stuff, but as long as, I think I said this last time we spoke, as long as things are musical, then anything goes, I suppose. There's a drummer called Charles Hayward who some people, hopefully, who've heard of him now will be going kind of fizzing a little bit because they'll know what I mean. He's just an exceptional drummer. Did some records with a band called This Heat. I may have mentioned them last time, back in the late 70s and early 80s. And I saw him play live a couple of times, just a solo set. And he's just got a collection of stuff. He's got like some cracked cymbals all on kind of old dodgy straight stands, and it's a bit of a mishmash of a kit. But what he does with it is so expressive. The first thing he did in one of the shows, he had 2 empty Orangina bottles, and he walked around the audience, just got off stage and walked around rubbing these 2 bottles together, and went up to every person in the audience just right in front of their face and rubbed these bottles. And the noise, the sound, I mean, okay, as a sort of spectacle, it was quite engaging and a little bit strange, unusual. It was really good. The sound was really nice of these 2 bottles, and it sort of, for me anyway, it kind of acted to reset my expectations. It's like, just came up to me and went, look, these 2 bottles sound cool, and then went on stage and just did this absolutely blinding drum set. So yeah, I don't know, I like just bashing stuff together, really, and if it makes a nice sound, then great.
Yeah, it's funny how you would think a lot of drummers would think on the same wavelengths when it comes to gear and stuff like that, and they don't, which is something I'm continuing to learn. Almost at 33 years old, it's you think you have things figured out, and you don't. You just it's just the way the way things change over time, how people's tastes vary. I know mine have. Right now, when I look at my kit, it's just a hodgepodge of random drum gear on there right now, and I just like the way it sounds. It's not a like, oh, there's an Evans head on this tom, but there's an Aquarian head on that tom. It's it's like I just like the sound, and if it like you said, if it's musical, I roll with it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's what you can do with it as well. You're the common thread in that, aren't you? And whoever's behind that kit is the one making it sound as a kind of extension or expression of themselves. And if that's a coherent sound or kind of nicely non-coherent, then great. That's kind of the musical aspect. But I don't know. I think maybe that's where the midlife crisis comes in, because you get to that point where you, like you said, you realize that you don't know everything, and you get to a point where you think, oh no, do I know anything? And you start kind of reevaluating and falling apart a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
No, I have had that. Mine hit about, I think when I started the podcast was when it was like my, I guess you could say, drummer midlife crisis. It was just like I felt stuck. I felt like I could not get out of a funk of I had to play a certain way and I had to have a certain sound or whatever it was, and it was just learning to talk to other drummers was it was hard for me at first, because you come in with your preconceived notions of we're going to both think the same way, and you don't, and it was really a big eye opener to make sure to listen to other people and absorb their experiences and learn from them. And I think
definitely,
I think this podcast is really it's been for me almost like an emotional journey of how to let go of some things and embrace other things, which is always good. And well, it obviously means something to you. It's a personal thing as well, isn't it? Yeah, and because this time last year I was in LA, and I had this freak out moment when I was there. I thought I was always one of those drummers that would be like, I would go on to maybe play professionally in a band and stuff like that, and not be home and stuff like that. And I got away from my family by myself for 2 days, and like I had this mental breakdown of like, oh, I missed them so much. I called my wife like crying over FaceTime, and and she's like, are you all right? And I said, I just want to be home with you guys. As much as I love coming out to LA and having this experience, I finally figured out what my role is in life, and it's to be a dad here and play drums and express my way through a podcast, and it's working out, I think.
That's good. Yeah, I think you need to be taken out of the comfort zone sometimes to realize that you quite like being comfortable.
And
not all the time, but that can be the case.
Yeah, and you're a father as well, so you probably can attest to that. There's times you're like, oh wait, just go away, kids. I need daddy time, and then you get away from it, and you're like, it's so quiet. I need them around to create noise, so I feel comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we just had the summer holidays from school, and that was 6 weeks at home with the kids. My wife works full time now, so I was doing all that. We had a bit of help from family and stuff, but I was really stressing at the beginning, thinking, how am I going to work? Where am I going to get the time from? And I think it's very easy to overthink these things. And I'm very lucky in that my wife works a lot, so financially we're kind of, we're okay. I bring in what I can, but I just realized if I just relax, I'm getting, my life now is going to the park and pushing my kids on the swing most days. And that is incredible. That's just brilliant. And I'm really thankful for the life I have. So I do stress out about work and tell the kids to get out my hair and all this stuff. But,
it's just
but
normal.
yeah, it's normal stuff.
Normal parenting stuff. But it's always, it's always good to have that fallback of, my first passion is drums, so it's always good to go back and just have time with it. Sometimes I feel like I don't get enough time to play drums, or I'm worrying about trying to schedule podcasts or do stuff on social media that sometimes I just forget to sit down and just play drums, which is always nice.
Right, exactly. It's important.
It's very therapeutic as well.
Yeah, I used to do that on tour. Sometimes things don't quite work out how you thought. So I thought being on tour was it was going to be the best thing, and I'd just be playing drums. But then, of course, you're in some small European town, just sitting around, not being treated particularly well. And these things are all relative. But after sort of 6 weeks of sitting in a van, eating very little and not being paid much and all this stuff, you start thinking, this is not the life I want. I used to look out of the tour bus window at these guys going to work in suit and tie and briefcase and think, that's the life for me. It's not at all. It's absolutely not. But it's, it's relative, isn't it? It's what you're in at the time. Yeah. Grass is always greener, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. And I think both of us have figured out that place where we have one foot in the musical world and as a drummer, and then we have the other foot being in the parent, responsible, I guess you could say, world. And finding that balance is always a challenge, but it's also fun at the same time.
Yeah, for sure.
So to kind of just switch topics is last time we talked, we were talking about music we're into. Is there any new bands that you're really into, or that have caught your ear?
The main thing I'm listening to at the moment is a guy called Mccombs. Have you heard of him?
No,
Mccombs, I think. I've been listening to him for a few years now, and he's just done a new record. And it's not about the drumming particularly, although the drumming is nice. He always uses really, really, really good musicians. But he is, as far as I can see, just the best songwriter for an absolute age. He's completely one of a kind, really unassuming, non-pretentious, really nicely written songs, quite unusual, some of them, lots of influences from like 70s funk to soul and jazz, but I don't know, it's kind of, if you had to put a label on it, like American alternative singer-songwriter or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, he's the main thing that I'm spinning at the moment, just loving absolutely every note he plays. Yeah,
I'll definitely have to check that out.
Which is nice.
Yeah, I'm always trying to find new music and be open, and the sensibilities from being living here in America versus you in the UK. Some of that stuff doesn't cross the pond, I guess you could say. It doesn't come there's some bands that are huge here that are, they're not that big there, and vice versa. So
Yeah.
So, and is there any other bands, or is that your pretty much your go-to band right now?
That's kind of it at the moment. I've just revisited some, like, with bands we talked about last time, like Soundgarden and stuff. I made a few CDs for the car and just remembered how genuinely great some of that music is, even some of the Nirvana stuff. And I've just been really enjoying listening to Matt Cameron doing his thing and getting into the riffs and having a good time with those. He's kind of a bit retrospective at the moment.
Yeah, I've been going through that as well, and it's funny with Matt Cameron. He doesn't get the praise that he really deserves, I think, sometimes as a drummer.
Yeah, but I think that's a musical thing, because although he was quite geary, I suppose, obviously had his Zildjian thing going, he's just one of the most unusually musical drummers, and I think at that level that doesn't always kind of break into the top layer of what it is you're doing. I think the same with Soundgarden as a band. Although they were big, I sort of don't understand in a way why they aren't more revered, because I think their music is so special, just so brilliantly and unusually written.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely Matt Cameron's a big part of that. His playing is something really special.
Yeah, and then for him to transition over to Pearl Jam later on, to be part of two bands of that generation of I guess you could say grunge alternative, music. Yeah. He still doesn't get the recognition he should. And I don't know if it's the fact that he sometimes doesn't overplay as a drummer.
Yeah, that's true.
He's he plays he fits the music very well. He doesn't overplay it. He doesn't overdo it. Yeah. And I think
he's tasteful.
He's tasteful. They're very good way to put it is tasteful. Yeah, because there's a lot of drummers who are tasteful when they're playing, and they just don't get any. People like Neil Peart, Carter Beauford's, people like that. They're so flashy. They get all the attention.
Yeah.
But when you're just when you're a groove drummer, you kind of just get pushed to the side, which is it's kind of a sad thing.
I even think that, speaking of Pearl Jam, with Jack Irons, I really liked his drumming. And he sort of, he did some big records with them, and now he's doing his own thing. I think he's amazing. He's not at all showy or flashy, but he's just got a real good, solid feel to things. But again, like Cass McCombs used a guy called Joey Russo, and he's got such a nice feel to his playing, but you just don't hear people raving about his playing on any particular record. These things, like Matt Cameron, he'll have a core of fans who really understand what's good about what he does. But yeah, it's not part of the wider picture, which is just the way it is, I suppose.
Yeah, it's the way it is. And, we still live in that mindset of, modern drummer or, drum magazine where you got to have those front cover issues, and, you're on every other, it seems like 3 months, it's the same people. And not to put anything against those three people, but sometimes I think they get in that mindset of we got to concentrate on these drummers because they're the ones that are big right now, and then we'll move on to the next three and so on and so forth. But I think now it's getting better.
It's a case of it is. It's a case of business again, though, isn't it? It's just going back to the symbol thing. I kind of think, like we were saying, it's an interesting time. I think we're on a bit of a transition in the way that symbols are looked at and used and marketed. In that,
for sure.
There's only so pretty soon there'll be so many holes in a symbol that people are selling that it'll just be like a kind of wire mesh. Although Zildjian actually did that, but that was for a purpose. That was a low volume symbol. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I kind of think, I hope that what's sort of emerging from underneath that is that people are going to really start appreciating unassuming instruments again. Like the fashion will kind of change, and in terms of symbols, maybe other instruments as well. It'll just be more about not the look so much, but the way I always say, a nicely made instrument just looks good. However you make it, if it's nicely made, it looks good as a result of being nicely made, not because you made it look good and then tried to make it sound good. So I kind of think, and like I say, I really hope, because it'll work for me, that the unassuming classic looking symbols will come back. And I think we're seeing that a bit with some of Sabian's lines in Zildjian as well. I think that's coming.
Yeah, they're getting back
and me and my symbols.
Yeah, or the vintage look is getting is coming back. That vintage sound of the played in. It's almost been almost like a used cymbal. You find those used cymbals that you find it for I found a cymbal here for $30. It sounds amazing,
Right.
But it'd been sitting on a shelf for at least 2 years. But but to get back to the the cymbal market, and then I guess to a certain extent the overall social media market of there's so many independent drum companies, and now there's a few independent cymbal companies, not as much as the drummers or drums. I mean, but the audience has changed. You can reach an audience that's a lot broader but more focused at the same time. And I think like you said, there's a new wave of finding out about musical instruments that we didn't have 10 years ago.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where I'd be without Instagram and Facebook and everything like that. But it changes the whole playing field. It doesn't just mean you can reach more people and be appreciated in the same way. I think it can be jumped on as well, like we're talking about business and the kind of difference between business and musicality or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The business element also comes along for the ride, and it changes the way stuff is kind of put out there into the public and the way people see what's coming. And so that does become a very important element. So like the whole thing changes at the same time. So it kind of has its challenges as well, but it's a good thing. I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. It's certainly useful as an independent.
There is it's a two-sided coin. You've got the ups, but you also got the downs as well, and it's learning to navigate them. And I think you've done it well, because I look at your numbers, and people are following you, and you're obviously putting out a content of your cymbals don't really have a look like everybody else's. They're very unique, and I think it's because you are the one making them. Versus like even some of the smaller independent cymbal companies, you got a team of guys, lathing and hammering, where everything that goes into your cymbals is through you, and
that's it.
And it's your characteristics that come out in the finished product.
Well, I hope so. Yeah. I mean, some people are screaming at me to get on with marketing and logos and stuff. And I definitely see the benefit of doing that. And I want to do that to a degree, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm kind of making excuses for just sometimes being a bit slow, but I kind of like just bashing a piece of metal into a nice instrument and just letting it go, out into the world. And I just kind of hide away in my little booth and do it. And I kind of like, I guess there's a mysterious side to it, I suppose. I quite like staying a little bit private and
the anonymity of it. Yeah. Well, and I think your cymbals. Do you hang on to a lot of cymbals you make, or do you let them go?
I let them go. I think some of them, I think I'm keeping that one, and then I'll meet someone who just says they're after a particular thing, and I'll take a bunch along, including whichever one or couple it is I've said I want to keep, and they'll go, that's the one for me. I gotta have that. And you know what? At that point, I think, fine, you can have it. It's cool. I can make cymbals for myself anytime I like, really. And I need the money.
I hear you.
I need the money.
Yeah, cymbal blanks are not cheap, and the tools to process and to make the cymbal is also not cheap either. And the time. I go through real ups and downs in learning, and I'm still getting it. My wife will tell you, sometimes I come in the house and I'm just nearly saying, you know what, forget it. I give up. And then I'll go out the next day and just go, I am on top of this. I know what I'm doing. And it's just my character. I'm not saying that's the way it is as a process necessarily. It's the way I am. But that's what I like about my cymbals. They reflect the way I am. And I'm quite happy for that to be, hammered into a piece of metal and to go on someone's kit and played. Yeah. Well, I hear you there. There's some days I come in, I'm like you, my wife's like, you all right? I'm like, oh, the hell with this podcast. I'm so done trying to, and it's just, you have a bad day, and
Yeah,
and you
right.
just gotta move on and and wake up the next day and refocus and because the podcasting unfortunately is not my full-time job. I wish it was, but it isn't. And so a lot of times it's work. My other job reflects my attitude, and I've actually, like, a couple times I've been such in a bad mood that I have told people that I was going to have on the podcast, can we reschedule, because I don't want my attitude to come across the podcast of like,
Right.
gosh, like,
That's very wise.
Yeah.
I should do that, because sometimes I get myself really tired and a bit kind of angry at myself for not being able to work something out. To people listening, I do know what I'm doing. You can still buy my symbols, but they're not that bad. But like, I'll just go mad at something, but then I'll make the mistake of picking it up and going at it with that attitude, thinking I'm really angry, but I'm not going to let this win. And then I just completely overdo it, and I walk away an hour later than I would have done in a worse mood. And if I've been having quite a few workshop visits, which has been really nice. I've met some great people, and it's been a reminder of my progression. I need, other people being interested has really reminded me that I have come some distance. But this guy, he's kind of thinking of taking it up himself, just getting some ideas. And he's visited a guy called Craig Lauritsen, who's in Australia. Apparently he's the only symbol smith in the Southern Hemisphere, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Anyway, he visited him, and he came and visited me, and he said, what advice have you got? So I said a few things, but I said one of the best pieces of advice, as far as I'm concerned, is just walk away, just take time off. Just don't do it for a few days or even a week or something. If there's something you're struggling with to learn, if that's the stage you're at, just go. Let your subconscious deal with it, because you will figure it out. You'll come back. You won't know how, but you'll suddenly be doing it better. That's the best thing I've ever done, is stopping doing it.
Well, and it's not like a drum where if you're painting or staining a drum, your attitude probably won't affect it too much, because there's not a lot of there's mechanics in it, but there's not like hammering and hitting and lathing involved with making a snare drum. But a cymbal is a completely different animal. And like you said, if you let your emotions get the best of you and you take it out on the cymbal, you can't go back and fix it really easily.
No, but at the same time, I think it's also because you're the one making the decisions and working emotionally, and you're also the one that decides whether it gets let out there into the world. So a drum maker might angrily apply some lacquer or whatever it is, and they, as the maker, might look at it and go, I hate the way I did that. I can just see the contour is not quite right or something, and as far as they're concerned, it's ruined. They might tear it apart or whatever. That's kind of what I do. But some other drummer might have come in who hasn't just been through the 2 hours of hell I've been through. They might just come in and go, that's a great cymbal. The perspective on it goes completely out of the window.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, so what are some of the Facebook pages or groups you belong to for cymbal making, out of curiosity?
For cymbal making or cymbal enjoying? Cymbal making, none. I don't really think there are any. There is a Facebook group called Independent Cymbal Smiths. I'm not really very active on Facebook anyway. And that, I don't know, it's not a particularly active thing. I tend to just check in on Cymbalholic and Drummer World and drumforum.org. I just have a look at what people are talking about, and if I have anything that I think might be of interest, I'll chime in. But as far as making them, I haven't seen anything really.
I was curious because there's tons of like custom drum making, but I've looked to see if there's like cymbal smiths or stuff like that, and it's
do you mean like telling you like tutorial, or you mean actually of other manufacturers?
Or just like groups of just independent cymbal smiths, just sharing their ideas on a group forum or anything like that.
I don't think, unless they're not telling me, I don't think you really get that. I mean, I'm friends, in the Facebook sense, I'm friends with, I think certainly the majority of the independent guys. And we kind of, there's a bit of banter and pictures of what you're working on, and that's nice. Like a guy I mentioned earlier, Matt Nolan, who hopefully quite a lot of people have heard of. He just does cymbals, but lots of gongs and chimey percussion and really high end, beautiful stuff. And he's always posting pictures of what he's up to. And it's not so much that we kind of share the ideas. If they're anything like me, and I don't know if they are, but I kind of prefer to forge my own way through it. So I haven't really asked for any ideas from anyone. I don't particularly want to. I just kind of find them out myself. Stubbornness, perhaps, who knows? But again, it's me doing this, and that's the way I am, and that's the way it's going to be. So yeah,
well, and at the end of the day, it's got your name on it as well. So
sure.
you want it to reflect your sensibilities, and not I've got to pull from Zildjian and this company and that company, or this cymbal maker. You kind of I'm the same way. I want to do it my way. I'll take advice,
sure.
And if I need to look up something, I'll go on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah.
But I kind of like to push forward myself.
Yeah, I do a lot of the cymbal companies have got videos of them making cymbals in their factories, and some of those are very, very useful to watch because you can get clues as to how to do certain things. And I've been studying. I've got some hi-hats, for example, some Bosphorus, really, really nice Bosphorus hi-hats, and I've just been studying those and working out in the metal and how I achieve that, and trying to kind of not copy it, but just understand why it is the way it is and how it is the way it is, and take that over. Again, not copying it, but just apply those principles to what I do. So I think just looking and learning and thinking. One thing, again, Matt Nolan, one thing he put in a post recently on Facebook about a gong he's working on. Someone asked how he learned to do it, and he said, trial and error and a lot of careful thought. And to me, that phrase, careful thought, just sums it up. You just got to think it through. You've got to let your mind churn away on it and take time away, like I said. It's careful thought that really is the thing, which kind of makes it feel like a lot of work, which is why I go a bit crazy sometimes.
Well, I mean, it's I like that careful thought. That's that's a great phrase to use with anything. As you could use that for any aspect of life.
True. So totally. Yeah. But like Bosphorus did a video. I don't know if they did it or someone who visited the factory did it, of one of their cymbals being made pretty much from scratch. The bell was pressed in. And then they hammered it, lathed it, and this video followed every single step until it was the finished product, even to inking and signing. And I studied that, and I've watched that a few times, and I know what they're doing. I understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. But at the same time, I've had a few people say, "Oh, I'll watch that, and I'll try it. That'll be great, and I'll make a cymbal the same." But you can't feel it. You've got to. You get your eye in after a certain time. You can't just say, "Oh, they've put the hammers there, so I'll put the hammers there." It just doesn't work that way. It's a bit more intricate. But at the same time, another cymbalsmith, Matt Bettis, very good cymbalsmith from the US, he just said, he did a podcast recently and said it's not rocket science, and that's true. It's not, but there's a lot of learning to it. There's a lot of thought.
For sure. My brother-in-law's a rocket scientist, so I always catch myself when I'm around him, but it's not never mind.
Yeah, what does he say? It's not like.
Well, he'll say
rocket science.
He'll say it's not brain surgery, and
then
so that I'm like, okay, brain surgery. He's like, but I'm like, I couldn't build a rocket, I couldn't build something for NASA, so sure. that would end disastrously, but my last little question I had is my co-host Adam Ellsbrook and I, we did a podcast. We did two podcasts. We just did one. Haven't put it up yet. We were talking about the affordability of symbols, and we both had the question of is it to us it didn't make sense to go and buy a brand new pair of cymbals from your local music store or online, is to go the used route or go to some of these lesser known companies and try their stuff, and you may actually be more pleasantly surprised with their stuff versus Zildjian or Meinl or whoever. Would you?
Yeah, no reason why not.
Yeah, when you were starting out, not as a cymbalsmith but as a drummer, would you buy used cymbals first, or would you buy?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Okay. And I think that was the conclusion that both of us came to, was if you're starting as a drummer, go with the used cymbals first, because you're still trying to figure out yourself as a drummer, and you'll be figuring out your sound as a cymbals and all that as well. So I was curious if that was your kind of belief as well.
It was. I mean, part of that was necessity. I didn't have
money,
especially when I was growing up learning the drums or teaching myself to play.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't really so many, well, if any, independents, or I'm sure there were. There obviously were, and smaller companies, but I certainly wasn't aware of them. And without social media and the internet, you couldn't really see them. So as far as I was concerned back then, you buy expensive, big, shiny Zildjians or Sabians, really. Maybe Pasty. I wasn't quite on the level with them at the time, although I do love their cymbals. It was that or used, simple as that. And you could get I had a really nice used Sabian. I think I mentioned it in the last podcast that I really liked. But I used to get, in drum stores, you get free magazines, catalogs for drum companies and cymbal companies. And I used to look at them and kind of drool over them a bit and think about my dream setup. And I did kind of think of something big and flashy and showy, although I never could afford to do that. And I don't really think I wanted to, and I wouldn't have known what to do with it if I had done it. But I think it's all changed so much now that people can go to, even buy brand new, they can go to a smaller company and have quite a nice set of cymbals for not that much money, especially, again, the way it's marketed. It's like this, and again, it's the keywords get chucked around, so it's a fashion thing as well. That's come along with the social media and things. So hey, this trashy crash can stack really nicely, and suddenly you're into buying this kind of new set of quite nice cymbals that don't cost quite as much, perhaps.
Yeah, it's
makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense, because like you said, I never had the money to go and buy expensive cymbals. I drooled over having the hodgepodge of Zildjian cymbals, but could never afford them, so I had to just pawn shops or thrift shops and find them, or go online and go to Craigslist or some obscure site and find cymbals. And you just had to do what you had to do. But I think with this different generation, I think there's more opportunities and different directions you can go getting cymbals. But I think you shouldn't go broke buying cymbals and then being let down, I guess you could say. I know I have.
Yeah. I don't think you need to really anymore. I kind of wonder. I wonder if the bigger companies are keeping an eye on the smaller companies to any degree. I think there's a lot of copying that goes on, and I think that happens both ways, or however many ways there are. I think I might be wrong, but I kind of think I've noticed that certain companies are looking at certain others and listening to what's being said and kind of working it all in. I've noticed a few of the same things coming through, even down to the way something's lathed or something, and I mean more kind of subtle stuff than just like fashion. I don't know. I don't know if anyone's particularly worried. I don't think Zildjian and Sabian have got anything to worry about being the size they are. But I don't know, just trying to stay on top of it and stay ahead of the game and see what's going on. And of course, they've got big guys like them have just got teams of people behind them who can go, right, this is what we need to do. This is what people are loving. And, market research, I suppose. But I think that's, again, creating all this slight mess of people kind of not really knowing what they're after and being sold, a round thing with some holes in for silly money because it's got a cool name. Yeah, for sure. No? Yeah, it's I've noticed that as well. It's there's some copying going on, but then it's on both sides, which is very interesting. It is exactly. Yeah.
But it's healthy at the same time. It's you've got to keep up with your demand from your market, so you've got to sometimes adjust how things look and how they work. So
yeah, it is interesting. And it keeps it exciting.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then also, Adam and I had a question because we did a podcast just about cymbals. We were just talking about.
I heard that, yeah.
And we came across the name. Is it Drill? DIR?
Drill.
Drill. what is that exactly? Or are you familiar with? Is that a person or that I don't know how to really, we were trying to talk about it, but we didn't know how to talk about it. Is that like a Turkish name that has a lot of influence in the symbol making world, or?
There will be others who know more about this than I do. To be honest, I'm not. I get a lot of people writing to me saying about how they want this kind of historical symbol sound, and they mention loads of names and stuff, and that's not really the way I work. That's just not the way I am as a symbol maker or connoisseur. I'm not at all.
Yeah.
Kind of to a degree, but anyway, yeah. As far as I'm aware, and don't quote me on this, I'm sure loads of people could correct me and elaborate, but there's not just one Diril. There's a few.
Yeah, there's a few.
There's a few different. So yeah, so there's a guy who operates independently who I think teamed up with one of the big companies, or
that's what I
something.
I if it's the same person we're thinking about, without saying names, I think that they had made some of the blanks for pasty, however you pronounce it.
I'm not sure. Yeah, supplied it, or to be honest, I'm really not sure. I know there's some kind of link, and I don't think it's anything underhand.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. But to be totally honest, I really don't know the story of it. I suppose I should read up and see.
Yeah, it's hard to read. I've been trying to read up on it, and Adam and I were like kind of trying to figure it out. It's like we keep seeing this name, attached. And I'm like, is this a family, or is this a title, or what? So we were kind of just curious more than anything.
Yeah, well, that's kind of cool. That's quite telling, I think, in a way, whether it's done on purpose or not. You're remembering that brand, aren't you? And you're, I quite like that air of mystery. I think that's good. It would be nice if just every so often symbols just appeared, and no one had a clue where they could possibly have come from. Same with music. I find I just love music the most if it's got that kind of air of you couldn't date it. It kind of transcends genre or fashion or anything. I think that keeps things mysterious, and I really like that. There is a certain appeal to having that mysterious aspect to it, with certain things, and and movies and stuff like that. Because there's some movies I love that people have never heard of. And it's like, how could you have never heard this movie? And it's well, cool. Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed catching up with you because it's following people online, and us being in two different countries and all that. It's nice to just see how everything's going and the progression. I love that's the one thing I love about this podcast is watching the progression of drummers and drum makers and cymbal-smiths. So it's I've always enjoyed talking to you and learning from how the symbols are made, because it's such a fascinating thing, because it's such I'm still learning and I'm still getting
it's such a a niche market as well. Like I said, there's custom drum builders, they're a dime a dozen, but when it comes to symbols, there's a lot, but there's not a lot of them out there. So it's an interesting thing to get into for sure.
I think there will be more. I just think it's something that requires such input of time and effort. And I've been very lucky to have that luxury. But, like one thing I've changed, not to bang on for too long now, but one thing I've changed recently, I hammer the bells into all my cymbals now. I don't know why. I just really like making life very difficult for myself. But I've had to learn how to hammer the bell. And I made so many, I had so many ideas and preconceptions about how it was done, which I worked into the bronze, and it works just fine, but there are finer points to that as well. So I kind of thought, if I'm making it from scratch, I want this piece of metal. I just literally get a round, really wobbly, wavy, crusty piece of B20 now with no hole in the middle, no bell, no nothing, and I just do everything. So now I feel I can really say my cymbals are totally handmade by myself. I don't roll the metal and create bronze, but I kind of like, why not put the extra effort in and just think I totally made that. The bell, I can control elements of the bell that affect the overall sound and everything.
Nice.
So yeah, that's kind of my progression. But it's nice to see the podcast. It's nice to have you back talking to me, because it shows that you're doing well as well, which is cool. And it's like I said earlier, it reminds me I am actually going somewhere and moving up. That's the hard thing to remember sometimes, is that everyone I make is better than the last, and to whatever degree, and that can be very hard to remember. So having stuff like this and the people visiting the workshop and the tons of emails I get every day is really great, helping me remind me what I'm doing.
Oh, that's awesome. With the podcast, I transitioned more into interviewing drummers and drum makers and stuff like that. And I think you were one of the first ones I had on that kind of made me think I need to change the way I approach this podcast a bit. So
cool.
I attribute that a lot to you because
Great.
It really opened up my eyes. Like there's a when I look at the numbers on the podcast, people like to hear how the process of making something or the process of a drummer. They don't really want a review of stuff as much as they want as a conversation with how to do things. Not how to do, but yeah. So I think your interview kind of pushed me into the direction of let's talk to people and have a conversation. I think is
good,
which is important. So
yeah, well, we'll work out a percentage. That's great. That's cool. But like I saw an interview with the Jesus Lizard recently. I love the Jesus Lizard. They're a great band. I watched an interview online and it was just such a boring interview, not because of them, but because of the interviewer. And I just love it myself when, just cut the, what's your favorite color and do you like playing in this city and stuff. That's a, little bit of that. But these are the people making the music. Let's talk to the people and get them talking back. I don't know if you know of Louis Theroux, if he's kind of crossed over. He's interviewer and filmmaker from the UK. I think his style is particularly good because he sort of gets a conversation and manages to reverse things a bit and just get people talking. Anyway, so yeah, I prefer an interview where there's a discussion and some kind of some insight, meaningful insight. Yeah,
and it bounces back and forth. It doesn't have a set path. It just kind of it goes where it goes. And
some people don't like it, but fine.
Need the hell with them.
yeah, that's half your listenership.
Sorry. Yeah, I know. Sorry, guys. I'm just kidding. But I think the air of mystery now with you is I remember the last time we talked, you were talking about adding a logo to your symbols, and it was a tattoo you have. And
that's right.
I've noticed there hasn't been a logo yet, so there's the air of mystery of your symbols. Is that adding that to your symbols? We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Part of that is laziness, and part of that is lack of confidence, and part of that is time and money. I don't know, and I'm still not convinced it's a good idea. I don't know. When I'm convinced of something, I'll do it. I don't see any rush particularly.
Yeah, because
watch this space.
Yeah, it's the logo doesn't make the symbol. It's the manufacturing the symbol.
It's not why I'm doing it.
Yeah. So, but
the symbol is the symbol. Once I let it go, it's out there.
It's out there. Yeah. And if people ask, they'll tell well, what kind of symbol that is? Well, it's a Collingwood symbol. Yeah. And that's that speaks more better than a logo, I think.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, though, I do see the value. I totally do. But it'll come. It'll come when it's right.
When it's organic. Yeah, I hear you. Well, cool. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and stop it real quick. So, but yeah, thank you again. So maybe we'll catch up again in another year and see how things are going.
Yeah, same time next year.
Same time next year. That's for sure. So yeah, let me just stop the recording.